Hello, everybody, and happy Sunday to you. And hopefully, you guys are enjoying your day. And if you're not, hopefully, you're going to enjoy this conversation with us. First and foremost, before I bring up my guest, I would like to say thank you guys for tuning in for this episode of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys already know we have some more amazing guests for you guys. And this is a live stream, so please put your questions and comments in the comment section. And if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head on over to their YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. Now, before I bring on my next guest, I would like to say that this is for educational purposes only. Now, without further ado, help me welcome my next guest to the show, Crystal Robinson. How you doing?
Hello, Tony.
Hi. Well, again, happy holidays to you, and it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be included.
Yeah. Now, before we get started, tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Who am I? That is a loaded question. Oh, I am a wife, a mother, um, a griever. This is the Grief podcast, right?
Yes.
Um, I am a transformational coach. I'm a national board certified health and wellness coach. I am a Chopra certified total well-being coach, a meditation specialist, an engineer. I, I'm all kinds of things. Most of all, what I am is the owner of Crystal Moon Holistic Healing. I love helping people get through everything, their grief, the limiting beliefs, their struggles with their health, their struggles with their mental health, their physical health, their total well being, their happiness, all of those things. I work with people now. This is my calling. I work with people to be happier, healthier, and more fulfilled and really enjoy living their life.
Wow, that is truly amazing. And yes, that is a whole lot of titles behind the name. I'm here for it. I am totally here for it. Right. I'm excited. I'm excited to have this conversation with you because I think you forgot to put an author as well.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
I am.
yeah, there you go. There you go,
Yeah.
guys. Got to check that
And
out.
author, co-author in The Change, Insights into Self-Empowerment. It's forwarded by Les Brown. I'm one of 20 authors. It's an international bestseller. And it's all stories of empowerment, and my own story is one of them.
Nice. And that I love the fact that you had the chance to work with Les Brown and things like that. He has
Yeah.
been a solid mentor of mine. I never had the honor and the privilege to be able to meet him, but I would love to one day just to be around him, just to speak with him, things like that,
Yeah, just
and
to
let
be
him
in that
know how much.
energy.
Right, right, and let him know how much he's inspired me, right? Because
Mm.
I've always watched his motivationals, and I think I mentioned this before. When I first got into doing this work in grief and things like that, I used to watch his motivationals, and I used to take it personal, like he was talking to me, calling me out or something. I used to hear some of the words I used to say. I'd be like, who you think you're talking to, Les? You don't understand. I will get on stage and I will punch you in the mouth, man. You're like, you can't be just talking to me this way, right? Little did he know, how much of an influence that he was in just my mindset and developing who I was becoming, right?
Yeah.
And met a lot of individuals that have worked under him. And I have to say, you know, it always puts me in awe when I get to speak to somebody who's been in his presence. Just the mindset that you have, and the things that you guys have been able to do. Um, so now, with that being said, let's jump into your story, right? Let's jump into your journey because you wasn't always who you are sitting right now. Like you said, you've been a griever. You are a griever. Your mom, and so many other things. What was your journey like that led you into this word?
Personal experiences. I feel like we grow up a certain way. We are conditioned, we are molded, we are trained and put into different things throughout our lives. And
Hmm.
I feel like that's kind of was my journey. I was kind of pushed into this even though I wanted to do that, or shoved this way even though I might have really wanted this. And I feel like that happened most of my life. And I always found a way to rebel. I was always kind of a rebel at heart. So even though I was kind of pushed into an engineering role, back in high school. I wanted to go into cosmetology. I wanted to do hair and makeup and nails and all of that girly stuff, even though I was very much a tomboy. And I was pushed into, because I had a high science and math grade, so I was pushed into engineering. And I did that and I was really good at it. It was easy. I was good at it, but I didn't love it. And even though I did it as a career, I went to night school to do cosmetology. I got my license. I opened a salon in my own space. I had nights and weekends. I'd do nails while I was doing engineering by day. So I was like my little rebel, like I want to be myself, but I'm doing this because this is what makes money and this is what's expected of me and what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I think most people do that. And when you do that, you suppress yourself and you suppress your emotions, suppress your being, your spirit, and everything that's going on in your mind. You suppress all that stuff. And what happens is it comes out in your body as
Mm,
disease or disease.
right.
And that was what happened to me. It just came out in my body throughout my childhood, my teenage years, my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And I had all these chronic illnesses, chronic problems, culminating in massive anaphylactic shock. I had multiple allergies, multiple hospitalizations, lupus, and a
Mm,
brain tumor. And it was just one after another, my body just yelling at me and yelling at me. And in between that, I had, two major losses in my life and feeling like I was going to lose my life after, going through a major grief episode, losing my stepmom, and then having the brain tumor and feeling like I was going to lose my own life. And then COVID. And then a year later, losing my dad very unexpectedly,
mm,
who had lost his wife 3 years earlier. And it was the catalyst for me that made me change. Everything I did to heal and get better physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually kept growing through all of those things in my life. And all I wanted to do was give back and teach other people to do the same because we all fall into, the normal medical or what people tell us to do. And it's a personal experience. It's a personal recipe that works for you, and it has to connect to your mind, your body, and your spirit. And that's what led me into this path. And I literally just left my engineering career of over 30 years to do this full time.
wow, that is amazing. That is truly amazing. And my heart is with you having to experience such deep losses, right?
Mhm.
And I have a question because I'm always curious about what you see far as the father, right? Watching, having his wife pass away and things like that, and you being his daughter. How one, how did you handle it? And two, how did you watch your dad navigate that loss?
So I'm going to talk about the loss of my dad first, because that's also what changed me and
Mhm.
probably helped me navigate the loss of him. Um, I was in the middle of my healing journey when we lost my stepmom, and they were in an accident together driving, and she passed pretty much immediately from the accident, and he didn't. He just got hurt. Um, and they weren't even in the state. They were traveling back from a vacation together, and I got a call, and I answered the call. And my relationship with my dad has always been kind of in and out. I grew up with my dad. My mom left when I was 10. So it was just me and my dad. I saw my mom on weekends here or there. She was living her life. I love my mom. She's great. But I really just was entrenched in my dad's family and my dad's life. It was just him and I. I was the woman of the house at 10 years old, 11 years old. Um, so we were very, very close. And my stepmom came in my teenage years, which is really hard for a woman, any woman, to have
Mhm.
another woman come into your life when you're a teenager. And I was always, I guess you could say, an old soul, very responsible, so I never really get along with her at first. It was very hard. And that was very hard for my dad and I's relationship. So we'd go in and out. We were very close, but then we would butt heads, and we'd have to pull apart for a little while and then back. And we were at that stage when this accident happened that we were we loved each other, but we just weren't seeing each other all the time. Here and there. Like, I'd be there, but he was living his life, I was living mine. I have 2 kids. My kids were teenagers. And so when I got the call, I was just like, "Oh, wonder why my dad's calling me in the middle of the day on a Saturday or Sunday." I don't remember what day it was. Um, and he just said, "I was in an accident. Laurie's passed. Can you come get me?" And I was just like, "Ah!" And it was just, like, so overwhelming, and my husband was mowing the lawn. I remember he was outside mowing the lawn, and I just opened the door, and I was, like, waving my arms, yelling for him to, like, get off the tractor and come in, and then I broke down, and then we both broke down, and it was just like, oh my goodness, and, "Okay, we have to go get him. He's 4 hours away. We need to get in the car and go get him." I told my kids. They were teenagers, they were old enough to be okay. I called somebody that was nearby. "If my kids need you, they're gonna call you. This is what's going on." And we just drove out there. And the whole drive, 4 hours of just driving, we just thought about all these memories and all these could haves, would haves, like, what the relationship could have been, what it should have been. And I had been really close with my stepmother from the time that I moved out of the house till that day. And my father and her were married for close to 30 years. It was 28, 29, 30 years. And we were so close that she was my maid of honor at my wedding. Which
Wow.
people would say, "Oh, your stepmother was your maid of honor?" Yes, my stepmother was my maid of honor. We were that close. Um, and we also had our, ins and outs. She'd be busy with her family, I'd be busy with mine. And just dealing with that and then getting there and just seeing my dad, like, literally dropped at a Dunkin' Donuts. The police officers dropped him at a Dunkin' Donuts. He'd lost his wife, the vehicle was totaled, and
Whoa.
they dropped him at a Dunkin' Donuts because he didn't
Whoa.
want to go to the hospital. He had broken ribs, and he was all cut up on his hands and stuff from the steering wheel breaking,
Mhm.
but he didn't wanna go to the hospital, and so they just dropped him, and I was just like, "Okay," and, like, hugged him and picked him up, and we just were there for him. And, like, even, like, by the time we got home, it was, like, 2 AM, and that morning, brought him home, and I said, "I can stay with you if you want me to." And he was like, "No, no, no, I'll be okay." And literally, like, 7 AM, I was back, and I just took the whole week off from work, and I was here every day, and I was with him every day, and I was like, "We're gonna get through this together." And from then on, our relationship, like, came back to what it was.
Mhm.
It was just like he knew that I would be there whenever he needed me. And when he didn't need me, it was like, okay, we love each other, but you're doing your thing and I'm doing my thing.
Right.
Um, and it changed our adult relationship so that we were very much more open and vulnerable because of this, because of the loss,
Okay.
and because it was changing his life completely. It was just him and his wife. He
Yeah.
has children. He has me and he has my stepsister, but that was it. Like it wasn't, his grandkids, but this was his life, his wife, and it changed everything completely. And I was just no matter what, family is the most important when it comes down to it, so I was gonna be here no matter what, and I think it was rough on my husband and my kids because I was just always there for my father and then pulling them into it, but we started, like, weekly dinners together and just supporting him through it, and then we went through all kinds of things. We went through COVID, we went through my brain tumor, we went through all of that, and then I got a call one day. It was literally a month and a half after he got remarried to a woman he had known all his life. And they always just weren't together. They were always with somebody else, and they just ended up being together at this point. And they got married. And it was like 45 days later, he was crossing the street to go to dinner in between his day work and his evening work. He was a plumber. He took care of all the OSHA stuff during the day, and at night he taught all the classes to all the men, all of the plumbers, men and women, and he loved teaching. And in between that time, he would walk across the street to this pub and then go back, and he did it for years. And apparently, cars had stopped for him to cross, and as he was crossing, a woman pulled out of a side street and hit him. And of course,
Mm.
hit the pavement and had a massive brain injury. And he was taken to the hospital. His new wife went right to him. I was called, but I didn't know what to do because now he's with a wife and not my decision. And I'm like, you tell me what to do. And it was kind of at the end, in the middle of COVID, the end of COVID. They don't allow that many people in the hospital. They said, well, we can just see what happens and let him go, but he's, major brain trauma, or we can do surgery. And I told her, I said, I don't think that's what he would want. And she, had just married him. They had just, connected again after all of these years, and it was her decision. She was his wife. And she decided to do the surgery. So I went up to the hospital, we stayed there all night, and it was over at like 3 in the morning. He made it through the surgery. Massive brain trauma, massive amount of work, and it lasted about 4 days in the hospital that he had been put kind of in a medical coma so that he could heal.
Mhm.
And as that was happening, about a year before my mediumship had opened, I started talking to spirit. Started having spirit talk to me. I would go places and know things about people that I shouldn't know. Well, my dad was literally outside of his body the whole time. He was talking to me. He was telling me, "This is what I want. I don't want to be lying in that bed. I don't want to be connected to all these tubes. I don't want this." And I was just like, I don't know what to do, right? I just didn't know what to do. And he kept saying, the papers, the papers, the papers. And I was like, what does he mean by the papers? There's got to be something in the house. And all this time, I'm with his wife. We're both in the hospital. I'm his only daughter, only child. And we're grieving for him and we're trying to help each other. And she was, of course, a mess. And me being the wrong one, just like, okay, I just got to take care of everything. And that's what I did. I just took care of everything. I shut everything down. I'm like, Dad, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of your wife. I'm going to take care of that. And I kept looking for the papers. About 3 days later, we had found out that he was having seizures. They were pulling him out of the coma and he was having massive seizures, and there was even more damage going on. And they would sit down and show us what was going on. And it made it, I wouldn't say easier, but at least you understood. You had the information as opposed to, oh, if he can hear us talking and he's squeezing our hands and he's coming back, all of these things that were, lights that we saw, but we weren't sure. And the doctors were like, well, we don't know. He might be 10% of himself when he comes out, if he comes out, and there's so much damage. And then as the seizures were happening, it was worse. It was getting worse and worse. And that next morning, I came into his house and I went into the office and I'm like, there's got to be papers somewhere. And I found a whole book. It was his estate planning. And I was his proxy. And he had a living will that said he didn't want any of those things.
Okay.
And I pulled those papers out, brought them to his wife. I said, this is the sign. This is what we need to do. We can't continue this way. It was hard for her, but it needed to be done. And when we went into the next morning, things had gotten worse overnight. So it was automatically coming. So we made the decision that we would basically pull the plug. That, if he wasn't breathing on his own, if he wasn't, able to think on his own, if he wouldn't even be able to come back or walk or think or be, he might not even ever wake up. I knew with my mediumship and my intuition, and based on what he was telling me, as soon as we pulled that plug, he was going to go. Because they said, well, he's kind of breathing on his own with it. He's just kind of using it as he goes. And I'm like, no, he wants to go. I knew he wanted to go. And so that next day we went in. It takes some time to lower all the medications and get him ready. And the nurse was wonderful that handled all that. We went in and we all said goodbye. I remember my husband hugging me in the hallway. I'm going to get emotional. That's what this podcast is.
That's okay. That's totally fine. Take your time. Take your time, please.
And saying, because I was handling everything, um, that you're the strongest person I know. And this was 3 years ago. And I'm still grieving, right?
Yeah.
Because we had to pull the plug. We had to make the decision. Um, but the best part about it, and it's never anything good about it, was that, you know, as soon as they did all of it and me and his wife were there holding each of his hands, it happened within minutes. It was so fast. He was ready. He wanted to go. And as soon as he was gone, he wasn't in the room anymore. His spirit was outside. It wasn't in the body. Um, and it hadn't been most of the time. He was only there to let go and then be done. Um, and I feel like I didn't grieve right away because I was just doing the things and taking care of the wife, taking care of
Mhm.
the family, taking care of the arrangements. We had that all week, and then the following week was the arrangements and doing everything, and then dealing with the legal stuff. And meanwhile, all this time, we got lawyers talking to us because he was hit, and might be a suit, and is she going to be charged? And all of these things are going on, as well as my stepmother's family coming at me and harassing me because they were they were estranged from my dad because they blamed him for the accident and his wife dying. So I was dealing with that at the same time. So yeah, it was hard. It was very hard. And I think the mediumship coming before my dad passed was the universe's way of helping me through it, helping me understand that it's not the end, that your spirit is part of this world, it's part of the universe. Whatever God or religion you believe in, the energy that makes you who you are is not just in your body, it's outside of it.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. So powerful. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that with us, because that is so emotional. That is very emotional. And as I mentioned before, as a griever, the only words that I have to say is my heart is with you.
Mm,
Because I understand that grief, you don't always want to be strong, right? And you don't have to be, right? And I listened to it. We all know. Some people say, "Oh, you're so strong for this, that, another," but then in turn you want to throat punch them, right? No, you get in my position, and then let me say this to you, and see how you feel about it, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah,
and,
you
and
shove it all down just so you can get through,
right,
and then
right.
do it later in private.
But honest, and this is where over a period of time we learn how to have grace for people as well as ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Because we understand, well, some of us, a lot of us understand that a lot of people don't understand what we are going through, and so they're doing the best that they can with what they
Mm,
have to work with, right? And it may not seem right to us, but I honestly don't want them to understand how we feel. Not until it's ready for them, right? Let me get to a place to where I can be strong enough to help you walk through yours and maybe educate you a little bit, along the way, as we navigate this world. And the energy, people people don't, well, everybody has their own belief system.
mm,
And as you and I have talked about this, very similar, very, very similar. Death is just the beginning, right? It's just a transference of energy. This body that we live in will no longer exist one day, and that's okay, right? But if you want a different connection, you can't have that. The energy is always going to be there until it's reincarnated back into this world, and they're there telling us and guiding us and protecting us, helping us become aware of what we need to do in order to navigate this world of grief, right? And everything that comes along with it. And like you said, the knowledge comes. You don't know where it comes from, but it's a part of who you are. And you can either accept it or you don't, right? And I know a lot of people, that go, this is, I don't want nothing to do with this, right? Like for
I was
myself,
that way for a
yeah,
long time.
yeah, a lot of us are, right? Because that's where that empathy comes from. I know my motto has always been, you know what? I have not messed with them. They not mess with me. Because last thing I want to do is get into an argument with the spirit and then realize that I'm going to lose the fight. No, I'm not going to do that, right? I just rather no. You just stay over there. You let me know what you need from me, and I'm going to do it. But other than that, no, right? Now, sometimes we just don't have a choice in the matter because we're drawing or people are drawn to us because of that specific gift, or like in my case, the gift of grief, right? I'm a beacon for those who are hurting, and I'm okay with that. I really am, because my cup is always full,
Yeah.
and it comes from the energy that I receive from the information and things like that. So it's my obligation to give it. And I think, from listening to you, yours is the same.
Yeah, you find your purpose through your
Right,
experience, right? And then you realize that you're filling your cup when you're helping others,
right,
right?
right.
And experiencing grief, whether it's losing a loved one or whether it's things not turning out the way it's supposed to, or a breakup or a
Mhm.
divorce, or, it could be numerous things that you grieve for. What could have been is usually why we grieve.
Yes,
And that can be more than just people passing. And I find that when I coach my clients, that my experience with grief, my experience with medical trauma, my experience with just, relationships, with everything, just added on to what I needed when I went into my trainings and my certifications. It was you pull it from your own experiences and you use that to help others, and that's what fills your cup.
yes.
That's how you know your purpose,
Yeah, and,
you
and
know?
and I had this question come to my head as you were saying that because most of us that have this lived experience, we have tapped into it, right?
Mm,
Now, on the other spectrum, we often run across people who have that lived experience that don't know how to tap into it, and so it becomes, not only a physical fight, but it becomes an emotional, mental, and spiritual fight as well. And sometimes it can feel like the attack is like, quicksand. You're falling down, all of a sudden, everything just falls down on top of you, and there's some days that you can't breathe. There's some days where you're struggling just to stand up on your own 2 feet, right? Let alone, try to be there for other people. But we see them. We see them. We see them walking around, putting that mask on, with the smile, with the laughter, because that's what they feel that is required of
mm.
them. And so my question would be, why do you think that is, right? And I have a theory, and my theory is the oldest one in the book. We're not taught to understand or even how to regulate through the emotional aspect that is the experience of grief.
Yeah, we're not taught how to regulate our emotions, period, right?
Yeah,
Whether it's grief, sadness, joy, we're not taught how to regulate our emotions. We grow up conditioned. And depending on the environment that you grow up in, and there's few that maybe grow up in the environment that allows them to show free emotion, that
mm,
allows them to use emotion. But like I've used this analogy before, and it's something that like I heard when I was a child, and I'm sure many people did, and it comes down generation over generations. Like, you don't have anything to cry about, stop crying, or I'm gonna give you something to cry about.
ooh,
Like we
ooh,
hear those things. And even if it's not coming directly from a parent, you still hear these things. And
mhm,
people are like, "Well, why are you crying? How do I stop you from crying?" It's like it's not allowed, right? Your emotions are not allowed. And even being an engineer for over 30 years, like being in that environment and being a woman in a mostly male dominated field, like any emotions that I showed, I wasn't, up to snuff. But if I became like the male and, you know, did those things and was very like, straightforward and just told it like it was and didn't show any emotion, then I was a bitch.
Ooh,
Right? So it's like I
yeah,
had to navigate that and understanding like what was okay for emotions and what wasn't. Um, but I think most humans in society today don't learn how to handle emotions until they're much older, until they're forced into it through their experiences. We don't learn how to handle emotions in our body. We don't learn not to shove them down and let them turn into disease. That's what happens. We shove them down and we abuse. We abuse, we smoke, we do drugs, we drink, we overshop, we find an addiction, we do something to push away the emotions because we don't want to feel them because we've been taught it's not okay.
right, right,
And that's what I find the work that I did in order to heal was learning that my emotions were okay and they didn't rule me, but it was okay to feel them and understand them and then process them and understand behind what's behind it, like and how does it change, like anger can change to sadness in your body and where is that in my body and what's happening. And that's what I do with my clients, like, okay, you're really angry about something, let's actually go into that anger. You're afraid to feel it, but let's feel it. What does it feel like? Close
right.
your eyes, breathe into it, and then let's see what it changes into. Technically, you need to feel an emotion for 90 seconds in order to process it.
Mm,
Nobody wants to feel an emotion more than 10 to 20 seconds. They're immediately like, you get that knot in your throat, and you're immediately like, nope, nope, nope,
yeah, yeah. Want to
right?
shut it down? Yeah.
10, 20 seconds. That's not 90 seconds is a minute and a half. It's longer than you think it is. And if you actually feel that emotion, let the crying happen, let the blubbering happen, or let the anger happen, like, ah, scream, yell, stomp your
Hmm.
feet, like whatever that is, and feel it. And then after 90 seconds, you'll be amazed the difference you feel in your body
Mm.
and what happens with the emotions and how they're ruling your mind.
Well, that brings up a personal some personal experiences as well, because I didn't understand emotions. I still struggle with them, but I do allow myself to feel them, because I'm still articulating the different emotions that has come along through the years that I've just now started to address,
Mm,
right? And begin to um, not wanting to make the world feel my pain, because I think that was, as a man, and I know there's a lot of men out there that probably feel the same way.
mm,
Right? And there's some women out there, don't get me wrong, there's some women out there, some tough cookies out there that feel the same way too. And I wouldn't want to be in a dark alley with them when they feeling that way. I'm like, you good? You good? No, I'm good. I'm gonna go over here and let you work that out, okay? And but I always watch over them anyway. But I will say, I agree with the 90-second, but then there's some of us out there that, and again, I'm speaking from my own personal experience. Like when the feeling of sorrow mixed in with the feeling of anger, it was so hard for me to distinguish the two because I didn't know that there was words that went along with it. There was a separation because the line was so thin, right? That it was, there was times where I'd be walking around, and the world just seemed as if it just needed to be hurt by me,
mm,
and I didn't want to justify that feeling, but it was there. It was there. I saw so many people. So, say for instance, this is me being selfish in a way. When my son passed away, I saw so many people that I felt that did not deserve to have their children because of the way that they were treated.
mm,
And here I am. I had to lose my kid, and I was a good father. least I'd like to say I was anyway. My son never wanted or needed for anything. Yeah, you got two men trying to figure out life together. And there was times I had to be on his case because I wanted him to understand, the consequences of his actions, especially if it was a bad choice, right? But I never mistreated him, you know. And I would like to say that I gave him a pretty good life. But then after that, there were so many people so many men that would tell me, oh, they'll be all right, and things like that. And I'll go, no, you're not going to be okay. It's your job to protect and provide for them, to teach them to be better than you. And the way your mentality is right now, you're going to create another non-emotional, emotionally aware man that's going to go out into the world, and life is going to bounce them around. And from what you're teaching them, they're going to transfer that over to relationships, and they're going to hurt other people that don't deserve to be hurt. And I think that's where my mentality was, because after seeing those, I was going, why did I have to lose mine? And you letting this person over here mistreat their children. I would tell you, the first thought that came to my mind was like, if I go over there and just punched his brain out the back of his head, you know, people would think that I'm wrong. And it took me a long time to control that part of me. Um, and unfortunately, I did isolate. I isolated something bad because I felt that it was safer for me and safer for other people if I just not engaged in society
Mm.
what I needed to do.
That was part
Yeah,
of your process.
yeah, it was part of the process. It was part of the process. Um,
Part
what
of
do you
your process.
Yeah, part of my process, right? And so again, it's individualized, and that's one thing that I get, I share with other people. Like, no matter what it looks like, is yours. It's individualized. So you do what you need to do, no matter what that looks like.
Yeah.
And then the other side of it, I get a lot of people that come back and go, "Oh, they're on drugs and this, that, and other." I go, "I know." Oh, what can we do? It's nothing that you can do at this moment, because this is a choice that they have made in order to cope with the reality that they have now ventured into. So, one first thing, don't judge them, not unless you walked in their shoes. Don't judge them. Secondly, don't try to tell them what to do or what not to do. They're doing exactly what they need to do at this moment. And thirdly, they have to reach their version of rock bottom before they ask for help. And the only thing that you can do right now, as painful as it is, you're going to have to watch them go through this. But watching them go through this will allow you, when the time comes, to be able to be in the moment with them, to encourage them, to support them, and to be able to get them where they need to be moving forward. But this is where it gets difficult.
Yeah.
And I
And
want to
then
get your thoughts on that. I want to get your
the
thoughts.
rock bottoms are, that's what the catalysts are. That's what inspire you to change, right? And they can be many different levels of rock bottoms in your life, right? Like I said, it could be just a breakup that becomes a rock bottom, or it could be literally like, you almost die, or, you're addicted to drugs, or you're homeless, or it could be
Mhm.
these major things that are happening in your life. But like just listening to your story about how you were grappling with some of your process was with your son, how many emotions were there? Lots, right?
I
So
was going
when
to
I'm
say.
talking about the 90 seconds, it literally is just allowing yourself to feel each one, and they constantly change. So it's a
Mhm.
constant process, right? Like the grief is a constant process. Different emotions will still come up 10 years later, 20 years later, right? You still processing when that person was alive with you, and what happened in your lives together, and how that affected you, right? Like, even things came up for me yesterday, that I was thinking about, when my childhood with my dad, and things that like he would do around the holidays, that like I do because he did, and other people don't. Like, you start really going through those, and it brings up emotions. Sometimes it brings up anger. Sometimes it brings up sadness. Sometimes it brings up happiness, right? Those are all part of just being human. And when I mean like emotional regulation, it's really just, okay, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? And it's okay that I'm feeling it. And what am I going to learn from this? And how does this teach me moving forward? How does this keep me from wanting to beat up that guy because he's not nice to his son? How does this keep me from speaking out where I shouldn't be, or trying to force somebody to change when they're not ready?
Right.
Right? How does this make me understand that I can control myself and my reactions, and I can't control others? Especially when it comes to our kids. When our kids become adults, we did everything we could when they were young, right? And
Mhm.
all we can offer is support as an adult. You can't tell them what to do from the time they're a teenager, right? It just becomes they know everything more than we do.
And that's the truth.
Doesn't matter. They have to learn it on their own. You can plant seeds, but that's really all you can do. And you have to, I mean, we beat ourselves up too as parents. We're like, oh, what did I do there? Oh, I made the wrong decision there. Oh, what did I say there? Like, those things happen. They happen for me all the time because I was going through this journey and this healing process while my kids were growing up. So they saw me in all these different forms and all these different personalities. Um, and now I understand, well, maybe it was good for them to see that because they saw me change,
Mm,
and they know that change is possible, right? That no matter where you are, where you want to be is available. It's just one little step at a time.
that's true. That is very true. And I'm glad that you said that because there's a misconception that you have to rush it.
Mm,
And what I find a lot of times is that when you rush this, and I had to learn the hard way because, I thought that's what I was supposed to do, right? As a man, I'm supposed to push this down. I'm supposed to suck it up. I'm just supposed to get over it as soon as I can, right? Because no one wants to, if no one cares. Look, and when I say this, I do mean all due respect for those who have taught us this. But I really wish that they would stop. I, as a young man, we was taught that no one cares about what you're going through. You have a very simple job, and your job as a man is to provide and to protect. Your emotions have no place
mm,
in these scenarios. So you're going to have to suck it up, and no matter what happens, we don't want to see you cry. We don't need you to be weak. We don't want you to have an emotional breakdown because if you have an emotional breakdown, then what good are you for me? Now I learned,
there you go, right there. What good are you for me?
right,
They're
but
not thinking about you.
yeah, they're not thinking about you. And this goes, there are women out there right now that complain, or see exactly, the things that I now advocate for, right? Yes, if you're in a relationship with someone and you both lose a child, both of you lost that child.
Mm,
The mother is going through it, but so is the father. But what happens a lot of times, people focus most of their energy on how the mother is doing and ask, how are you doing? What can we do for you? All the while, the man would disappear and no one would even take notice, right? Because we're taught not to talk about it. So they disappear and go into the garage. They go do other things. And we're forced to figure it out on our own, right?
So, based on all of that you're talking about, here's a theory, and this is a theory I've had for a while. You know, and maybe you'll think of it differently than I do, but your emotions suppressed, right? And your
Mhm.
feelings suppressed become problems in your body. Most men tend to die before women do.
Right,
They have more diseases.
right,
Most men hold more stuff in.
right.
right? And it's scientifically proven that when you don't regulate your emotions or you don't feel them, it changes all your hormone levels and how your body works, your cortisol levels, everything changes. Stress is the number one killer, and stress comes in so many forms.
Mm-hmm.
Grief, work, struggles, like stress, right? It's everything. And sometimes a little bit of stress is good because it makes us get things done. But when we don't use that stress for good and we just let it fester, it becomes disease.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you're talking about men doing that, and I see it too. I see it in the men around my life. My dad did it too. Like my husband does it. My son does it. Like it's just it's almost like one of those things that's socially pushed on people. Just like women, they have to be quiet and be nice and be ladylike. And like we all have these social norms that are put on us that we try to conform to. Well, it kind of gets down to it is just be you. Stop
Right.
being something that somebody else is turning you
Right.
into.
I love that you said that, and I want to go back because you said something. Um, because you said that you watch it with your husband, right? In what sense do you watch him? Is it how he engages with you in your time of grief and things
Yeah,
like
like they
that?
want to be strong for you so that you can
Yes,
grieve, right?
yes, yes.
It's your father, right? It was my father, but my husband and I have been together 36 years. We started dating in high school.
Okay,
My husband was like my father's son he never had. They were very close. So, like, there was no reason for him not to be able to grieve either. But we both were putting on this mask for the family, for
hmm
our kids, for, taking care of his wife, who's now widow after 46 days of marriage or whatever it was, crazy. And and everybody else around us and just dealing. And that becomes what you put out into the world as opposed to just being you.
right.
And then, after all was said and done, we'd be in our bedroom and we would just cry,
See, I
right?
think that's
Because
cool.
nobody else was there.
Right,
We didn't have to have the mask.
right.
And, is that ever gonna be socially acceptable? I don't know.
Oh
I don't
well.
know. I think it just depends on the environment you're in. But,
Hmm.
as long as you're actually releasing it, I think that's all I can ask.
I want to add to what you said, right? Because I do believe that yes, being in the environment that you're in does reflect on how you can show up in your own emotions. Now,
Mm,
do I think that it would change? Yes, I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that this does change. But it's eliminating the environmental part and teaching others how to create an atmosphere
mhm,
to allow others to be vulnerable. Don't complain about how a person shows up if the atmosphere is not right for them to show up. You can't keep creating the same things over and over and over again because it's not working. It's what's been going on for generations and generations. And you said something, men die a lot sooner. Men get sicker, right? A lot more than women during these processes and things like that. When is the bulb going to go off? And it began to go, oh, we can't keep doing the same things over and over and over again. It's time for a change. And this is where I advocate for both men and women in the grieving aspect of it,
mm,
right? Because of the simple fact of women complain that the men changed during this time. Men complain that women make it always about them. I say, there you're both right, right? You're both right because that's exactly what happens, right? Now, if we can understand that, now we begin to pick that apart and go, well, let's hold ourselves accountable. Why do you think he is showing up like that? Or why do you think she feels this way? Right? But it's because of the way that you portray yourself in that relationship. It's the unexpected expectations that you have now bestowed upon each other, which doesn't allow for certain things. A person cannot be vulnerable if you have an expectation of this person always being strong.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is, and this is for my ladies out there, please, and don't, if you have anything to say about it, please put that in there. But I'm gonna lay out a few things that may be able to help you along the way. When a man's world changes after loss, so does his trust. Because life teaches us these things, right? And so every relationship through every loss requires another level of trust. And that trust has to be earned because you don't know what we face when we go out here into the world. You don't know the things that we have to endure in order to come back to you in one piece throughout our daily lives. It's what you don't see outside of the home, which affects us inside of the home. So hopefully that makes sense. Secondly, when a man has to be hard all the time, that man will begin to change how he not only lives within that relationship, but how he survives that relationship with you.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa, men. It goes both ways. Okay. You know what I'm saying? If a woman has to tiptoe around you all the time, it would change how she submits to you in that relationship. You have to be able to create a welcoming environment for both of you in order to live, in order to not only survive, but live through the losses and be able to know how to support each other in that. I get so sick and tired of watching relationships fall apart after these said losses. And the biggest one is child loss. And I've seen it. And I've sat in rooms with them. I listen to the conversations. And I go, maybe take some time and walk away from each other. Think about where your emotions are. Men, learn how to articulate. Women, learn how to allow him to articulate to you because this is where the disconnect is. Then come back together. Allow yourself to be heard and allow yourself to talk
I
individually.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And what I find most working with people is it comes back to judgment, expectations and judgment, right? But it
Mhm.
all comes back to our own self-love and self-worth,
Right,
right? You
right.
have to come back to self. And if everything that you value about yourself is based on something from somebody else,
Mm,
you will
mm,
never be satisfied.
very true.
And the person that's in the relationship with you will never be able to get close. Communication, is super important, but
Mm,
being vulnerable about those things and doing it with yourself, like doing meditation, doing journaling, doing those things that get you into you,
mhm,
right? It really ultimately comes down to nobody else matters. You take care of you. You can
mm,
control only you. You can't control anybody else around you. And most people go through their life thinking about, if I say this, I can get this. If I do this, they will do that, right? It's
mm,
all based on transactions. But when you come into yourself and you're comfortable and proud and relaxed, you become peaceful, you become calm, you become less reactionary, which in change does that with the people around you.
mm.
I watched this happen with myself because I used to be extremely reactionary from all of my own traumas. I would just like blow off the handle, whether it was at work or at home or with my kids or whatever. And it was just because I didn't love myself.
Mm.
I didn't think I was worthy. And I was
Yeah.
constantly trying to prove it. I was constantly looking for that validation that I felt like I never had. And you're
Mhm.
never going to get it from somebody else. It comes from within, in your spirit, with your God, with the universe, with whatever it is that you connect with into yourself.
Right.
If you can't do that, no relationship will ever be as good as it should be.
I want to add to that because I want people to understand, and I love that you brought that up, self care, right? Sometimes people don't understand what self care is. There's a huge misconception of what people may perceive it to be, right?
Mhm.
Some people like to go out and get and shop. Some people like to go out and dance and drink and things like that, right? And they go, "Oh, I'm taking care of me right now," right? Things like that. Everybody has their own interpretation of it, but I think the real definition that people sometimes overlook of self care. It's about allowing yourself to be with yourself. And the reason why I say that, because there's people out there that cannot stand themselves or cannot stand to be alone with themselves because of the way that they feel about themselves.
Mhm.
Now, that also leads into a quote that I read one time, and it hit so deep that it really made me sit down and go, wow, how many people are doing this? So we talk about the people pleaser, right?
Yeah.
Now the quote, and I'm going to slaughter this doggone thing. So if anybody has the correct wording for it, please, don't come after me, okay? But put them in there. Let me know what your thoughts is on this. But the quote said, "The reason why you spend so much time taking care of others is because when you needed someone, no one was there to take care of you. And this, in turn, is a trauma response. You become the people pleaser because you're so afraid of other people hurting you again. So this becomes the way that you protect yourself."
Mhm.
And I thought about that for a minute, and it really dawned on me. I was like, wow,
Yeah. It's true. Everything comes back to your experiences,
right.
right? What's been put on you. You become those things, and how you deal with those experiences and what you learn from them, and whether you're living in them still or you've taken the lessons and moved on, changes how you react to situations. I tell people stories about myself and how I learned about my own reactions and how they were connected to just things that I grew up with, right? They're trauma responses, like you said. And it could be just little trauma, like it's just the day-to-day things that like you learned and were pushed on you. But like I tell this silly story about dishes. I've told it on podcasts before where I grew up that, like, after dinner, like, they all had to be cleaned, and I had to do it. My mom cooked, my dad would go in the living room with his, book or watch TV or whatever, and I had to clean up everything. And then when my parents broke up, it was like my dad was like, "I do all the outside stuff, you do all the inside stuff." So it was like I had to do that. I couldn't go even do my homework or talk on the phone or watch TV until everything was cleaned up after dinner.
Hmm.
But when I got in a relationship with my husband and his family, and we would have a big family dinner, they would put everything in the kitchen and leave it and go back into the dining room to talk or play a game. And I would feel this pull to those dishes that it was like against my upbringing, against my values, that I couldn't let them sit there. And it was like this awful feeling like in my body that was just ingrained on me based on my experiences.
Right, right.
And I had to learn that that was what was happening because I would do the same thing with my husband. I'd be like, "I cooked, you clean up the dishes." It was just like, and we would have these arguments and he's like, "They can just sit." Like, and then I would have a hard time letting him sit and I'd just go do them and then I'd be angry that I did them,
Yeah.
right? It was just based on the experiences. And I really had to like mull that over and look at what are my beliefs? What are my core beliefs and what are my limiting beliefs? Like this is a limiting belief.
Mm.
Nothing's going to happen if they sit there for 2 hours while we play cards. Or if they sit there till tomorrow morning. Like they'll be fine. The world isn't going to end. Like I had to learn that. And that's a silly, stupid story, right? But like
No, not at
this
all.
is how you go through processing limiting beliefs. And now I find I'll put all the dishes in the kitchen and everybody's like, "Oh, let me help you clean up." And it's like people from my family. Like I know that they get because we're all in the same environments. And I'm like, "No, we're gonna play cards. Just leave them. Don't worry about them." And I purposely do that so that I am conditioning myself a different way.
Mm.
Right. And this is just awareness, right? Working through what we've now discovered. And then the awareness changes our reactions and what we do. And that's how trauma responses are happening. Like you over explain because
Right,
you're proving yourself,
right.
right? And you have to condition yourself to, I don't have to tell everybody everything. I don't have to prove anything to anybody.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to tell somebody that until you actually experience it. I used to be that way. I would over explain. Something went wrong. Like I wouldn't be like, okay, I understand. Let's fix it. Right? That's
Mhm.
really all you need to do. You don't have
You
to
took the
over
coffee on that one. I was like, woo, all right. And then, look, I'm starting to think that you're calling me out, okay? Just FYI, that's why I'm over here like, keep on talking. I told you I got duct tape. I'm not afraid to use it, okay? I'm not. Oh, did you freeze up on me? Oh, no. Give her a second, guys. She'll be back. Hopefully, you guys are getting a lot out of this. Chris, I think you froze up on me. Hopefully, you can still hear me. If you can still hear me, jump off and jump back on. It should correct the problem.
I'm back. Are you back?
Oh, oh, there you go. There you go. Awesome, awesome,
We're
awesome.
back. Technology.
Yeah, technology. It happens. It
So
happens.
yeah, I'm not calling you out. I'm just
No,
letting
yeah,
other
no.
people
I think you are.
find it,
No,
right?
no. I'm taking as you calling me out. I'm like, oh, we talked before, so I'm like, oh no, she didn't. Right? No, I'm just joking. No, I'm just joking. Um, and it's and I say that to say this, right? Because one of my biggest things that I used to do, especially in relationships, I didn't understand that it was okay to let other people take care of me because I had been taking care of myself for so long. And through the many experiences that where I was open to allowing someone to take care of me, it always came with some sort of attachment to it. You remember when I did this for you? Yeah, I'm gonna need you to do this for me, right? And so I developed a way of living to where I couldn't allow people to do that. Right? I would rather do for you. I've always been that sort of person. I would rather do for you than have you do for me, because I never wanted anything back in return. So no, I struggled, and even now I still struggle with people doing that, because people often say, "Hey, when I did this for you," and things like that. Now I got tons of things that I can come back at you with, but two wrongs never make a right, and it's not my job to remind you. Right? I'm just not going to do it. What I'll do is that I will eliminate the things that you do for me. That way, I don't feel as if I owe you anything. But I'll never bring up for what I did for you. But as soon as you do it, I'm out the door. I'm gonna walk away from you. That's
Yeah,
just me.
life isn't transactional.
Right. And most people want it to be that way. And I
Yeah.
understand, everybody's always going through something, and life teaches them different things as we go. And it does affect how we show up, right? And it affects our actions, our choices, and how we respond or react to said choices that we have. right? You can. A pastor told me one time, and I love this. I love that he did this because he goes, in your life, it's like a triangle, and every point of that triangle represents something. So it throughout your life, you will be all three of these things. You will either be a victim, a superhero, or a villain, depending on the situation that you are in that present moment in your life, right? So then as time went on, I began to look at that and I began to exclude myself from that triangle. And then I realized that there was another side to it. And most people never even get to that side. But I taught myself how to look outside of my own life, to view myself as if I'm looking at myself live this life and make these choices and how it would affect other people. So now I'm observing myself as well as everyone else. And I still do that to this day, right? I still can see myself. I will separate myself and look at myself live this life. And then I can ask myself, am I doing the best that I can in the moments that I am experiencing? And if so, the next question is, am I leaving those individuals that I am coming in contact with better than what I found them? And if the answer is no, I will go and find that individual to make sure that I am doing everything that I can to make sure that they're okay. Because I never want to leave anyone in worse condition than what they come to me. No one asked for that, right? And the things that we experience becomes transformational, right? And meaning that we whatever we carry with us, what I'm saying, we transfer it to other people and they carry it with them. And it causes like a huge chain. It can cause either a train wreck or it can be a beautiful thing where they can have a different perspective, different attitude on how their next interaction with someone else comes, right? And so, you always want people to have a positive interaction with you so that, no matter how that day started off, you know that it's going to end right there and it's going to turn into something different throughout their day, right?
Right.
And I think
Right.
that's a beautiful thing.
I have
Uh,
something to add to that.
yes,
So
yes, please.
this triangle, right? This victim, villain. What was the third one? Victim, villain,
Superhero.
superhero, right?
Mm,
That is all based on judgment,
right.
right?
Or
Is
or
it judgment
the
from others or is it judgment of yourself, right? And your self-worth. And yes, you are all of these things. Like we are our shadows, which would be sometimes the victim is part of that shadow.
mhm,
Sometimes the villain is part of that shadow. And then we just want to be the superhero all the time because it looks good. But
mhm,
you are whole with all of those things.
uh-huh.
And that's what makes you you. And you pull those tools out based on what you need to survive,
Exactly. That's
right?
what that's what the purpose of the triangle was. It's
Yeah,
a
and it
section.
is, it really is, but it all comes down to like if you're labeling it because of judgment, because of how others are judging you, or how are you judging yourself?
A
And if
little
you
bit of
get
both.
away from the judgment and just come into, I'm doing the best I can with what I have to survive.
Mhm, mhm. No, and you're absolutely right. So I'm going to add to a little bit more of that because that is based off of trauma, right?
Mhm.
That is based off of trauma. Like you said, that's based off of self judgment. Because if someone has gone through trauma, you become the victim because you can always point the finger at somebody. Look at what they did to me. And you can always use that as an excuse about how you show up and how you react in certain situations if you don't feel comfortable, right? You always have an excuse.
Yeah, we've both been there.
Well, more than look, more people than they
Yeah.
care to admit, right? So now, at some point, when somebody tries to do something, or you have the thought that someone's going to try to do something to you, you automatically go into defense mode. Now you got to get them before they get you. You've just now become the villain. This is a judgment call. This is a trauma response,
Mm-hmm.
right? But now here's where it changes. You will become the superhero when you see someone else going through the same thing, and automatically you go into saying, it's been done to me. I'm going to do everything to make sure that it does not happen to this individual, whether it's a friend or it's a stranger or a child, right? Now you have to jump in and pull the shirt back to reveal the S on your chest. You gotta fight
Yes.
for them. You got to fight for them, right? Because you wanted so bad for someone to fight for you that no one did it. Now you have to go in to protect. Now you in Superman mode. You in superhero mode, right? These are all trauma. This is why I did that, because I wanted people to understand that this triangle is a trauma response.
Yeah.
Now, when you understand that and you become emotionally aware of these things, now you can step outside of there and you can become the observer. And I think that's where the healing begins, because now you eliminate the titles.
The
You
awareness.
the awareness of all of this, because once you're aware of all of these things, now you can have a response to the different situations that may arise.
Mm-hmm.
You don't
Yeah,
you know
without having a reactive response,
right,
you
right,
actually have an educated, calm response
right. And that's the
based on, "Oh,
difference
this is how I
between
really
reaction.
should treat this situation."
Right, exactly. Because reaction and response are two different things. Reaction is more emotional, response is more logical and rational. So
Exactly.
if you can separate that, if you can separate those two and see it for what it is, right? Now you can begin to respond accordingly, right?
Mm,
You can begin the healing process, because now you realize that you're dealing with your own set of traumas. And that's where the accountability comes from. That's where the patience and grace comes from. And that's how you learn how to take care of you yourself. So now when you do show up, when that work is done, now you have a cup that you can give to other people, because now the experience that you've just now had to go through or grow through and feel, now you can walk with others
yeah.
in their moments that you need you the most. Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, and all I can think of is when you were saying that, like, the footprints in the sand? Like, everybody
Yes,
knows the story of the footprints
yes.
in the sand, and God or whichever you follow is beside you. That's what that is, right? That's
Mhm.
coming into that self, back to self.
Yes.
It's understanding everything about you and having compassion for it and the awareness of it so that you can move forward. Some people call it enlightenment, but like there isn't one goal. It's a constant process. You're
Mhm.
constantly having things that are going to happen in your life, no matter where you're at, no matter what you are, whether you're Mother Teresa or, the guru, you're still having things happen every day
Mhm.
that you have to analyze and work through and process and understand and just control your reactions and have a better response,
Mm.
right? That's really what enlightenment is. It's
Right.
just being able to be calm and deal with situations in a different way. And will we react even though we're doing that once in a while? Hell yeah. It's gonna happen, right?
You're
We're
supposed to.
human. We're
Right? It's
human.
supposed to. But it's what you do in those moments, right? It's what you
Yeah.
do in those moments. If you feel yourself having an emotional reaction to something that is going on around you, I I've gotten to a point in my journey to where when I do feel those emotions, I check myself, because
Mhm.
from having an emotional reaction to something, there's something inside of me that I have to go back in and that I have to address, right? Because it's causing something. It's
Yes. It's
causing
shifting.
it's causing something to come up that I have
Yeah.
not addressed. So now, with that being said, it becomes the term authentically who you are, right? and being on that, I don't think a lot of people really understand the work that is required, the things that need to be surrendered, the things that need to be gained, the openness that need to be had, and the mental, emotional, spiritual, as well as the physical transformation of allowing yourself to be open to finding those different variations of you throughout this world, and
Yeah.
depending on what you believe, throughout the universe, throughout the multiple dimensions that we encounter in our day to days, right? Through spiritual connections, um, through any sort of connection whatsoever, right? As long as you can find that different version of yourself. And this is where that terminology comes. It's always you versus you. Who are you willing to be
Mm.
as you grow? And if you're growing on a day-to-day basis, then every day you should meet a different version of you. Because yesterday don't exist and tomorrow is never here. It's not promised to you.
Right now.
So who are you today? And don't compare it to who you was yesterday. What are
Yeah.
the lessons that you've learned, and what did you learn that you had to give up in order to have what you're going for, right? And it's the interactions throughout those different moments that transfers you or transforms you until there's
Yeah.
nothing else left in the physical. So and I want that's what I needed to say about that. The authenticity that comes with self, right? And that
Mhm.
comes with a lot of self care, right? Because that changes too, right? The way that you treat yourself. Having a routine is good, right? But being able to pivot within that routine is even better, right? You may find that, hey, yesterday I was doing this, right? And you may find something in there that you didn't like doing. Okay, today you're gonna do something different. You have to be aware of these things,
Yeah. I have
right?
an example of that.
Yeah,
Like,
please.
I have just taken this big leap to leave corporate, right? Leave,
Yes.
the big salary, the big title. I was vice president of engineering for 17 years. And I left all of that to do this work full time instead of just have it as my like side thing that I love.
Mhm.
And I still have this going on in my brain. Like, you're still going to have the things that come back that, am I good enough? Will I be successful? What happens if I fall flat on myself, flat on my face, right? Things like that happen. Like, can I make this what I want it to be beyond what it is right now?
Mhm.
And the awareness of self comes into, okay, I'm having these thoughts. Let's look at these thoughts. Why am I having these thoughts? What do I do so I don't feel like I'm having these thoughts? It's that process in your mind when you feel those emotions, because the emotion is like the self worth, right? And
Mhm.
that's always what it comes back to. It comes back to you and
Yeah.
what you feel about yourself and your judgments. And the more you can analyze those and listen to them and be like, okay, I hear you, brain. I hear what you're saying. You're worried, right? This is what the brain does, like catastrophizes always.
Of
Like,
course. Of course.
worry
That's
when you don't hear from somebody, they're dead in a ditch, right? It's catastrophize. But like, okay, wait a minute. Breathe. Okay, what am I really worried about? How can I counteract these worries, right? And that's the self-care.
mm, yeah.
It's listening to your thoughts, acknowledging your brain, because your brain just wants to be comfortable and be like, hey, I'm saying this. Are you listening? I'm
Mhm.
listening. But I'm not listening to exactly what you're saying. I'm listening to the feelings behind it
Yeah.
and why you're saying it. And now I'm going to counteract those.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree. And I want to add a little bit to that too, right? Because the definition of fear, right? That pops in. Now um you have the two definitions. You can feel everything and retreat, or you can look at it in in a different way. You can feel everything and retrieve,
Mm,
right? You can go back in and go, this is not going to stop me. And I think Matthew McConaughey said it best. when he was getting back into uh, um, the being an actor, and he had been out of work. He talks about the story and things like that, where he goes when he got his first acting gig out of like 6, maybe 9 months or something like that, and he didn't think he questioned himself whether or not if this was going to be what he was going to do. And when he did, he said, "I'm afraid for all the right reasons."
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. And that's where, I began to look at these things. And just like yourself, when I got into this, look, there was hardly any men doing what I was doing. I think there was maybe one famous guy, David Kessler. And I was like, wow, this guy's doing some amazing stuff. Let me study him a little bit. But and I reached out to him several times, but apparently he didn't want to talk to me. So I was like, okay, well, shoot, well, I'm gonna do me, right? So I had no guidance. I had no one saying this, you can do this or you can do that, or I had no blueprint. So everything that I had to do was through a lot of failures, a
But it's
lot of
more authentic,
right, right, but I didn't know that, right? I didn't know.
right?
I
You
thought
want
that
the blueprint. We want the quick
they're
fix.
doing it, and maybe I was just looking in the wrong places. But then it dawned on me that there was no other men out there doing it, and so I was like, I'm on my own. And those things did come about. What if I fail? And I said,
Right.
well, what if I don't?
Right.
Well, I'm looking at all these other people, and they stopped here. Well, what if you took one more step? What does that look like? Right. And I think that everyone that gets into this field, right, we leave a sense of security where we do have a paycheck coming. And we may not have all the money saved up. And it's a leap of faith because you never know whether or not if this is going to pan out. All you have is a thought, you have a vision, and you have a path that you have embarked on. And the horror stories that come along with that is enough to make a person retreat, right?
Mm.
It's enough to be like, "Ooh, I am not doing this." And the reason why I say that is because I had to do it alone. I had to make those sacrifices, and I've had a lot of people criticize me, saying, "Oh, you're not going to be successful." Look, the horror stories are true. Yeah, I went broke. Yes, I was homeless. Yes, I had people stab me in the back and drag me through the mud. I failed so many doggone times that I can't even count on. I can't even count, right? Or than to get those little small wins.
We learned. That's
You
where
know,
failures is where we learn from.
right, right. But I think that's where a lot of people struggle at in this field, right? Because now it's becoming more of one of those things. It's becoming um, a
Mm.
much needed niche in every aspect of it, from mental health, suicide prevention, recovery, grief, trauma, all the different variations of it, right? All of these people have now started to come out the woodwork, and it's becoming this beautiful thing, this beautiful tree that we can all pick from and eat from the fruit of it and become this force to be reckoned with in the world, because now we can stand in between, what I'm saying, the things that damage us and give people the things to help them heal. We got a comment up here. Honor your heart. Thank you for tuning in. I'm gonna put this up here. And they say every time we fail, the soul rejoices.
Mm. That's nice.
That is nice. That is nice. Um, I want to get your thoughts on that. And please elaborate on that for a little bit, because I'm going to get your thoughts on that comment. I'm going to share my thoughts. But thank you for that. Please, thank you, and thank you for tuning in to the show. It means a lot. Thank you for your support. What do you make from that?
So that's why I do what I do, right? It's the
Mhm.
mind, body, spirit connection. So, you know, your mind is putting you in one place, your body is acting on it, but the spirit is where all the information comes from, right?
Mhm.
That's the subconscious. And okay, the mind has this idea, oh, the body's going to go along, and the spirit's like, okay, let's see what happens. Oh, I just learned. So the
Yeah,
soul rejoices, right?
yes,
Because your spirit's like, okay, I learned something, right? Even if I failed, I learned something. And then I'm
yes,
going to try again. And then I'm going to try again. And like when you were talking about Matthew McConaughey, I remember reading his book, his book, Green Lights, which is really
yes,
good.
yes,
And it's really it kind of shows that same thing. Like when you read journeys like your own, like where people just kept doing things and they either succeeded or failed. And sometimes when you succeed, that's the end of the line. But when you fail, it's just another chance to take another step
right,
and another step and another step to constantly just improve and get better at what it is you're trying to do, right? And
yes.
the brain is just afraid all the time. It likes to be comfortable. It doesn't want to fail. But when you actually look at failure as a way to learn, it totally changes how you're going to go forward.
That's very true. That's very true. But the beautiful part about it is that I would not change it for the world. Um, and I do agree, honor your heart. I do believe that every failure, the soul does rejoice because I believe that's a way. That's the soul's way of saying I get to learn something new. Throughout all of these, I can figure out a way to make it happen, right? And now I associate that with the grieving aspect, right? Because since there's no blueprint for grief, the things that we do may not work for us, right? It may just be a temporary fix, but it may not be a long term thing.
Mm.
And so now, when you go through something, you're like, oh man, I feel worse than what I did before, right? And so you tie that in, the grieving and the healing aspect in with the self until you figure out what really works for you. And I do believe that when we go through those things, we hit that brick wall, the soul goes, I was getting tired of hitting that brick wall. You think we can go this way a little bit? Because you can't climb over the wall. You can't there's no end to it, you know. And I think the more and more we begin to develop ourselves in our healing process through grief and trauma and mental health, the bricks around the doors begin to fall off to reveal that one handle. And as the more bricks fall off, the key is revealed until now we're down to the bottom. We can clear it out. Now we got a clear path and we can open it up and then we go through there and you may be met with a whole matrix of other doors that you may have to go through. And but you get to choose which doors that you may like, right? Because you may have a colorful door over here. You may have a door full of smoke, fire, etc., right? And what I find for me, it was going through the most toughest doors that was the most beneficial for me,
Hmm.
right? Because I never wanted to have something handed to me. I didn't want it to be easy. I wanted, and when I really got into this, I really wanted the challenge. I wanted to see if I was capable of finding myself in these difficult moments. And trust me when I say this, was it a challenge? And yes, I did find myself, right? But I don't regret going through the most difficult things because it taught me a lot about people. It taught me a lot about myself. It taught me a lot about surrender. But most importantly, it taught me so much about um, the healing process that I had to go through in order to be a better version of me as I began to grow within my grief.
Mm. I think
And
that all the things that we go through make us who we are, right? I
yes,
wouldn't be who I am if I didn't go through the things I went through. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm sorry you had to go through that." But I agree with you. Like, I'm glad I had to go through those things. Like, those things made me grow. They made me learn. They made me go into myself. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't go within. And most people walk around outside of themselves, blaming, shaming, you know, making excuses, and they never go in. And it's really within, and those choices you make about everything in your life that you have to feel good with.
Yes.
When you're constantly blaming and shaming and making excuses, then you're not going within. You're doing things that aren't authentic to you. You have to go back to you. Um, that's what I would say to everybody. Literally, if you feel like you're at your rock bottom, wherever that may be, I know I've been there a few times. I know Tony's been there a few times. Wherever you are, take a moment, breathe, notice the beauty and the miracle of the breath in your body and your life,
Mhm.
and what's happening there. And go into yourself. Close your eyes, breathe, and see what your heart has to tell you. That's where the wisdom is.
Yeah.
It's within.
I want to talk about your book. I want to talk about your book. When was your aha moment when you decided to write your book?
I decided to write a book, oh God, a couple of years ago, and I
Pull it up
never
so
really
everybody can
jumped
see it.
in.
Pull up your book so everybody can see it. So
Yeah.
people know.
Now this, like I said, it's a co-authorship, so it's an anthology. I have a chapter in this book, so it's not all my book. There's multiple authors in this book. And this was like the fire under my butt to get me going. Like I've always had, this I should write a book. And then something else would happen. And I'm like, you really should write a book now. And then something else happens. Oh, you really should write a book. you know, and it's like, okay, yeah. And then I would have all these ideas and I joined like a writers community and I did a few little things, but then in the meantime, I was doing all this healing and then these certifications and then my purpose was coming forth and all of these things were coming. And the book was kind of on the back burner.
Mhm.
And somebody actually reached out to me noticing my content and what I was putting out there and what I was doing. It was like, you need to be in this book. And so this is like my launching pad, right? And now I'm working on my own full length and I know I have more than one in me,
Mhm.
you know? And I do want to, get it out there. I want to get out there and do talks and be more out there, which is why I left the corporate life because I am jumping in with both feet. And this was just the start of it. I went in to write my chapter and I had like 3 chapters and I had to like condense it all down because I couldn't put that much into this because we all had our own space.
Right.
But this was big for me because I originally when this came forward to me, I was like, am I worthy of this? Right? That thing in your brain that pops up. Me?
Mhm.
They want me to write in this book, right?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
those questions come up, and I had to, like, mull it over and, like, talk to spirit and go to myself and, like, talk to my guides and whatever you want whatever you talk to, some people talk to their lost ones or God or whatever it is, and really had to mull through, "No, no, you are worthy, you've been wanting to do this. This is the push. Get your butt in gear and get it done."
Right, right.
So now I'm working on my own full length, and there's multiple in me, I know, that'll come out.
Always, always. I just got done doing a chapter in mine. I was right there with you. I got the writing. This is my second book as well, right? Just like yourself, my first time out, I was asked to do it. I was like, I've never thought about writing a book, but I did it. There's an anthology that went international bestseller, and I was like, I'm an international bestselling author. Are you crazy? You don't get, how in the world would somebody like me get a title like this, right? Because I didn't think I was worth it, nor did I ever see it coming, right? And
Yeah.
then I was just offered to write another chapter in another anthology right along my alley. It's called When Men Grieve. And it's coming out. Angela Lewis is the one who gave us the opportunity. So, ladies, men out there, please, whenever it comes out, please support that. And then I'm doing one next year called the Foreign Love Language of Grieving Men, and so it's going to help people understand the process that men actually go through, right, and understand the language a lot
Mm,
more, so we know how to show up and things like that. Um,
I
so
think
yeah,
that'll be so
keep your eyes.
powerful.
Huh?
I think that'll be so powerful. Yeah.
And that's what I thought too. But what do I know? Right? I'm
Yeah.
just a guy.
I know we think that.
No,
My
no,
mind taught me
really,
about the mind body spirit connection and how you can actually listen to your body to heal.
right. Well, see, I'm always thinking to myself because no one really tells me no, and even if they do, I do it anyway, right? Something wrong with me. Something's really wrong with me.
That's the rebel in you. It's gonna come
Right,
out.
it's the rebel in me. Well, actually, it's the grief in me, right?
It's
I
the
allow
inner
myself
self.
to go out into the world and be creative and go, what else can we create, right? Along the lines of grief. And I just always want to explore that. I'm just a curious guy in the world. And my spirit is like, wow, let's see what else we can do, right? To bring more awareness to help other individuals because my spirit just wants to serve. That's all it wants to do. It just wants to serve. It wants to be creative. It's like a child, right? Being born into the world again. Everything is new. And then I
Mm.
see the things that have not been done. And I go, what if I did it? Right?
What
What
if?
if I did it? And so then I do it, right? And I have fun doing it, right? It's just so much fun for me. And I want so much for people to be able to do that, especially those that are in this field. God damn, be creative. Let's do things that's never been done before. You want to host that conference? Do that conference. You want to write that program? Write that program. You want to start it? Do it. Do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Because you are needed in this world. This is what we're called to do. Don't let the thought of fear or the essence of fear stop you. Do it. You want to do a podcast? Do it. You want to be on multiple? Do it. Don't let yourself stop you, right? Because your story will be here long after you.
Yeah. Envision it.
Right? Envision it
Envision it like it's already happened and it will
and
come.
go after it as if your life depends on it. Because not only does it depend on it, but there's other people lives out there that depend on your story as well.
Yeah.
And you
That's the
you
way I
need to
see
put
it
it out
too.
there. Yeah,
To
yeah.
reach one person in
You
this
already
one
know.
podcast, we've done our job.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Now, how can people find your book?
My company name is Crystal Moon Holistic Healing. So you
Mhm.
can find me at www.crystalmoonholistichealing.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram under Crystal Moon Holistic Healing. You can also find me on LinkedIn under Crystal Robinson.
I love that because that was going to be my next question. How can people find you? But you already took that one out. So guys, go check her out. Her information is down below. And I love the fact that you sent me the chapter in your book. I've read it over and I'm loving it. I'm going to be printing it out and putting it in, put it in my special little folder. Be like, I know Crystal. I know Crystal, right? So I get to do that, which is so much fun for me. And now if you can leave the audience with something today, what would you leave them with?
Go back to the breath. No matter where you are, no matter what's going on in your world, like I was saying earlier, come back to you. It all starts with you. Don't let all the outside noise, all the outside judgments or expectations control your decisions. Come back into you. You are worthy. You are whole, no matter where you're at. All you need to do is breathe and tap in, and everything will come.
I love that. I love that. And I want to say, as we begin to wrap this up, Crystal, I knew we was going to have a great time talking, and we did, right? Got to do plenty more of these.
Hey, you got me crying. Doesn't
Huh?
happen very often.
Yeah, these things happen, right? We're not going to talk about that, though, right?
Hey,
No,
I don't mind. I don't mind. See, we're all vulnerable. We all have stuff.
that's it. That's it, right? And we all, those of us that are in this field, we got into this field because, we've had to go through, we had to grow through what we've gone through, and we're here for those who need us the most, right? And it shows that, hey, like we're not just all talk. We're not just all talk. We had to go through, our things, and we had to grow and we had to heal, and now we're here for other people. And so like I said before, you guys gonna see plenty more of Crystal, and we got a lot of great things coming up. Finishing up on the Double magazine, so we're gonna get that out there real soon, hopefully before the new year. We got a lot more episodes coming up that the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. So if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head on over to their YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button and hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And these are going to be live streams. So we want you to come in, ask those questions, right? Get to know the people. And help start your journey of healing, no matter where you at, right? The podcast do serve a couple purposes. Do the conversations to help you understand the individuals that I'm talking with, and the information is down below. So these are people that you can actually reach out to for support as well, right? So take advantage of that. Even if you don't want to subscribe to it, that's totally fine. Go and find you some support. It's about you. It's not about anything else except for you. All right. And for everyone who's been tuning in, Instagram has been blowing up over here, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, all of you guys, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully I didn't miss any comments. I don't see them all, but I'm going to go back through and be able to answer those as well. And with that being said, guys, this is going to conclude this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. But I want to show you something. So I've been rocking the You're Enough t-shirts or sweatshirts and things like that. And I want to say that you guys are enough. You are enough. And on the back, I started wearing this because I'm a huge mental health advocate, right? As well as a men's grief coach. It says on the back, for the person standing behind me, the person in front of you, I want to say that the world is a better place with you in it. And I'm verbalizing this to you because the world is a better place with you in it, right? And I can't stress it enough. You are enough. You are loved. You're cared for. And there's people that want to see you heal. And we want to walk with you as you begin to heal, right? With that being said, guys, thank you for tuning in for this episode of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. Thank you for your continued support. And we're going to see you guys in the next one. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you so very much. See you guys in the next one. Peace.